heirs. This is a mystery that's been hidden to the ages, that the Gentiles shall be fellow heirs with Israel, those that believe, and those that God's put belief in their heart. So when you get into the sixth chapter of Genesis, then you come up with, you get to the sixth chapter and you see the sons of God look upon the daughters of men. That is not angels coming down from heaven. And this is what Hitler thought. Hitler was looking for the superior Aryan race. And he had heard that, I don't know why he's looking for it, because he wasn't. I mean, he's a little short, squatty guy with a goofy looking mustache and ugly, you know. He wasn't Aryan. He didn't have blonde hair and blue eyes. And tall and big and strong, and that don't mean nothing anyway. But he was looking for that fallen race. And that fallen race, he brought back the Svasti thought, which the Svastis was, they had 8 festivals on that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That 8 festivals on the swastika, and those were the sun festivals. This one right here was Samhain, Samhain. And Samhain is Halloween, later on changed to All Hallows Eve, which shortened to Halloween. And the Catholics brought it into the Catholic Church and renamed it. And this was Yule down here. And you have the others, Beltane and Lugnash and so forth. And we'll get into those too. But the main 3 we're talking about, Easter up here, are Ishtar. And as I said, Ishtar, or Easter, was a German goddess that went down into the underworld. And she called up Tammuz from the dead after 40 days of mourning over Tammuz. And the Jewish women mourned over Tammuz in the 8th chapter of Ezekiel. Now, where was I? All right. Where this all came from, into the pagan world. When one of the descendants, when the sons of God looked on the daughters of men, that is not angels. I started to say Hitler was looking for that. And you're going to find this representation in all cultures of the world, that the sons of God were heavenly fallen angels coming down to intermarry in the world. You find that fairy tale with Hitler, because Hitler, Mary said to me one night years ago, she said, why don't you teach with some kind of organization? There's no organization. Organization is chaos. I can teach organization when I teach the Bible. When I teach this stuff, I have to just throw it at you and let you unravel it the best you can, because that's what I'm doing. There is no continuity to. The only continuity to it is how they took it out of Christianity and applied it to pagan worship. Well, here's where it started. In Genesis 3:15. In Genesis 4, you got these descendants of Cain. It doesn't originate with God. Adam's lineage originates with God. And then Noah has Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And then Noah and his wife go into the ark. Shem, Ham, and Japheth have their wives. And where all this started was one of the descendants of Ham. It was his grandson, Nimrod. That's where it all started. He's the guy that started Babylon, or Babel, which was the Babylonian system. Let us make us a name. And you have to mathematically deduce. It had to come from somewhere. When people come up to you and say, well, when you see these things about the ancient world, and you see all of these other virgin-born sons, how come you know Jesus is the true virgin born and he's just another one of those mythical fairy tales? Has anybody heard anybody say that? This is where it comes from. It comes from the prophecy of Jesus. I'll put an enmity between thee and the woman, between thy seed and her seed, and thou shalt bruise his head, and you'll bruise his heel. Christ is going to have his heel up on the head of Satan, or the Son of God will crush Satan. So that's the first prophecy of a Messiah throughout the Bible. And Eve is listening to God talk to Satan, and immediately he turns to her and says to her, I'll multiply thy seed. Here, I got something to say to you. He's talking to the serpent and Eve at the same time, backing up one right after the other, and Eve's listening. And she remembers God saying to the serpent, I'll put enmity between thy seed and her seed. And then she says, I've gotten a man from the Lord. And it is strange that one of the survivors of the flood the very system. The reason it's Adam and Eve worship, Ham had to have married, this is the sons of God marrying the daughters of men. Ham was in the lineage of man. His wife was in the lineage of man. He brings her into the ark, intermarried with her, and brings this system that Eve said that was twisted. This is what happens when you listen to something without getting the confirmed understanding of it. She didn't get a confirmed understanding of it, and she was listening in, and then when God says, I'll multiply thy conception, and then she says, I've gotten a man from God. That was saying he's virgin born, well, isn't it? That's exactly what it's saying. She didn't know nothing about birth. Nobody had ever been born before. Nobody. First person ever born was Cain. And she thought it was some miracle of God that it came out of her because God said so. But she didn't know he was talking about the one you're going to have. He's the seed of Satan, not because Satan had an affair with Eve, because Satan whispered in Eve's ear. You couldn't say that the fathers of the Pharisees, the mothers of the Pharisees had a literal tryst with Satan, can you? And Jesus said, your father's the devil. Did he mean your mother had an affair with Satan? A sexual affair? Now I want to ask that bird brain out of Arkansas, Gravett, Arkansas, because he says Satan and Eve had a sexual affair together. Does that mean when Jesus told the Pharisees in John 8, your father is the devil, that the devil came into, like Rosemary's Baby came into their mother one night, and they couldn't have been more evil. No, it means that Satan is their father because he is causing them to do his will, to comfort the flesh. Well, this is where all this comes from. Eve, you have to have someone bringing this out of the ark. The only one that could have brought it out of the ark is Ham, because it was his descendants. His descendants is the one that started spinning this tale, and he built Babel, and he built Asher, and he built Calneh. He's the first to build cities, and he's a mighty hunter before the Lord. That word before the Lord, before means against. And he went out and slew the great bull and called himself the Herculean giant. Said he killed the bull with his hands, put the horns on his head, the tail around his waist, and tied the hooves around his feet. Several of the writers say, and therefore he was the great conqueror. So everywhere you find the horns, whether it's on the heads of the American Indian or whether it's on the horns on the Vikings, or wherever you find those long pointed horns of the women in the European regalia, they come out with those little veils down over the horns. It's all a picture and a type, and they worship the moon because they worship the crescent moon that have the horns on it. And they said this depicted power of the man, and every one of these was called a savior, or was called a champion, someone that's going to deliver them. So when you get into Hercules, it was nothing but Nimrod and Semiramis. And Mr. Woodrow said he couldn't find Semiramis anywhere but in the two Babylons. Have you looked in Mr. James George Fraser's Golden Bough? It's in there. A whole lot's in there. So this is where it started, and Babylon mothered it all, and it was founded on self, let us make us a name. And the tree was founded on self in the garden, and it's fed down through here, and then it goes out here and pollutes the whole world. And this is what angered God. Now, this is where it comes from. All of this goes together. It has to. You have to come up with a mathematical deduction the way it got to Babel. Ham didn't come up out of the clear blue sky, and it was his grandson Nimrod that started it all. When he said, let us build us a city in a town, let us make us a name. It'll be self. Now, when you're going to tell somebody about this, tell them it's that Halloween is the same thing as Christmas, same as Mardi Gras, and that Israel worshiped this under the title of Baal and the Grove. Baal and Grove. Baal and Grove. And that's not always worship. I can't name all the female deities and the male deities. Baal meant the Lord, is what it meant. When they named their God, they called him the Lord. And Baal was Hercules, and the grove was Venus, and I didn't make that up either. And all the sun gods were, their birthday was December the 25th because, goodness, it's not even hard to understand, because the sun waned down to December. And then it brightened up again back to midsummer, and they have fires. They have midsummer fires. They have the fires during Beltane, which is the midwinter fires, and then they have the fires for the Saturnalia, and they have the fires for September.